Guys, what is up? Jeff here for One Fish, Two Fish. Today we are going to talk about something that I wish was not a thing, especially at my store. I'm going to ask all the staff. The worst one they've done probably is going to anger me because I probably don't even know about it. Today we are going to talk about floods, flooding your tank, and common mistakes that people make to let this stuff happen. We've got about 5,000 square feet here. We've got over 200 tanks. We've got a couple of very large tanks. Floods, unfortunately, are a thing for us once a month. We've put a handful of things in place at the store. We kind of come up with something new every month to try to prevent these things from happening. Just today, we flooded about 100 or so gallons of water on the floor. I'm going to show you the most common one that we do, and it's so silly, but it does happen. It happens to the best of us. I'm going to tell you the worst flood I have ever done, and it was the worst for every way. It could have potentially been the most expensive. It was the worst because it killed an animal that I had wanted for a very long time. I had set up a very large tank at my other store, specifically. This tank was set up specifically for this animal. I had tried to get this animal 3 separate times. It died on transit twice. It devastated me. I said I was going to get another one, and I ended up getting a third one. They said they would pack it extra for me. They would put it in a big box. It cost me a fortune to get it shipped, but we did. It was a shark, a bamboo shark back in the day. Anyway, I'm going to save my story till the last because I know mine's going to be the worst because mine was brain dead stupid. But let's go and ask around and see what we can get for some flood stories. This is Jacob. This one's going to anger me the most because he's supposed to be the guy not flooding my store. He's supposed to be the guy preventing the floods at my store. What is the worst flood we have had in here since you've been here? I'm putting him on the spot here, and he's trying to think of one that I already know about so I don't get mad. How often do we flood the store?
Right now, or how often have we flooded the store?
Both.
So, at one time we were flooding the store 3 to 4 times a week. So
Sure.
almost every day.
Okay, so that's, yeah, so, okay.
And now we're down to one to 2 times a month.
Which, I mean, that's better. It's better. We're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm happy about it. So we flooded the store today.
Yeah, we flooded the store today. The most common floods happen when people run water, topping things off, and then get distracted and leave the water running.
And in full disclosure, it is super easy to get distracted in this store.
Very.
There is 100 jobs to do, and obviously, we need customers, but the thing is, while we're doing most of these jobs, we are open, we do have customers in the store, so it's very easy to get into a conversation about a new tank or a new problem or a new fish or a new something and forget that you are flooding the place. So let's take a look at where we flood our store. So I'll show you where we used to get the most floods from the stupidest spot. So in our store we have very large bins. They are they have a name, I can't remember. I can't remember what these are called. Anyway, you can get them at a lot of different spots. You can get them online. So we always have one full of salt water here, and then we also have a large one full of fresh water here. They are there for a number of reasons, mostly in case something happens that we need instant water, and we don't have time to make 200 or 300 gallons, so we have it there just to keep it going. The biggest problem that we have had is when we're filling this up. It's super easy and convenient to just throw a tube in it, walk away, get talking about something. So this is actually pre-mixed water. We do put prime, we do put a bunch of different stuff in it, but we do clean it, and we do have it ready for us when we do. Sort of something silly that we can get to it very quick. This is probably the one that we used to flood the most. Now we have dumbed it down a little bit, and we have actually put sort of auto top-offs on them, so they'll just fill on their own for us. This one does the same thing. It's a little more tricky because it's salt water, so once it fills, we have to actually go through it and make the salt water and kind of bring it off the level. But the biggest floods that we get are from this room right here. As you can tell, this room is a bit of a, what are we going to call it? We'll call it a cluster. There is airline tubing going to every tank. Some tanks have two. Every tank is plumbed together, and everything runs off of this sump. And then there's also another one down there that kind of runs that system. As you guys know, we've got 4 systems in the store, and then they all run, each one has its own very large UV that runs. There's just so much stuff that goes into this. It's so easy to kick a tube out or be filling the sump up, which we do usually once a week. Once we'll do a really big, usually when we do a water change, we leave the sump alone because just like your filter, when you're doing a water change in your filter, we have a ton of media in it. You don't ever want to touch that. You don't want to get that dry. You want to leave it alone and just keep it the way it's supposed to. So we'll usually leave our sump alone. Occasionally we will do a very good clean of it where we'll move the media. But this is easily the room that floods the most. Now, the problem is we've got 2 of these rooms. We've got a community sort of freshwater stuff over here. I'm going to try to move around here. And then we also have one at the other part of the store that is the same thing. Today, that is what happened. We had a bunch of stuff on the go today. We had new fish come in, new plants come in, a bunch of customers here, and we were just doing some different stuff online. So when we were filling it, of course, we got yapping, and you start hearing a scream of flood, 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 and you look back, and this is the crappy part of the outcome. I don't know how well this shows up on camera, but after it floods, you'll kind of get water sort of coming out the bottom for the next little bit. And then we just stick a fan on it, kind of blow it off for the day. And then usually any day where we flood it, we'll also do a mop that night just to try to sort of suck up as much of it as we can. But as you guys have seen before, we do have most of our stuff, and you don't ever notice it in the store. Let me see if I can give you guys a better look. Most of our tanks will run through the ceiling. We'll actually have all of our set for automation to sort of do it without us having to help. The saltwater sump will automatically fill up. The freshwater sumps will fill up. Mostly we get our issues when we're actually doing physical stuff to it. We're doing water changes to it. And as you guys would know, every tank for the most part should get a water change once a week. We have 200 tanks, so there's really no days where we're not doing water changes. We've also set up our little beta system. We're going to do a walkthrough of the beta system at a later date, so we'll show you guys a little bit of how our beta systems run. Very simple. They're just store-bought things, but anyway. But yeah, that's the biggest one. The worst one that I've ever done, and it very much sucked because, like I said, it cost me an animal that I said I'd never get again just because I had in essence killed 3 of them. 2 of them due to they don't ship well, and the third one 100% me. I had a 300-gallon salt tank that it was about 7 o'clock, and I have a very firm rule at the store is that you are not allowed to do a couple things anytime past 7. Now we close at 8 o'clock, so that's sort of the reasoning behind it. And what I had done was it was right about 7 o'clock, and I had a big water change I had to do with the saltwater tank. It was a 300-gallon tank. So while I was doing it, I drained everything. I always do a good clean of the sump in that one because the media wasn't there at this time. This is years ago. We were just using live rock. So I cleaned up the sump really good. And then what I would do is I would mix my salt water in my sump. I would fill it up with RO water. I'd put my salt in. I'd mix it, let it sit for an hour, and then I'd go. So I left myself enough time to do all that stuff. And unfortunately, I forgot all about it. I was filling it up. I added some salt. I put a power head in to mix it. A very good customer came into the store that anytime I saw them, they would always spend a lot of money. They had a very nice reef tank themselves. So anytime they came in, I was excited. I went and was talking to them, ended up talking to them for about an hour and a half. The 300-gallon tank was in the back room. It was supposed to be closed at 8. I didn't get done talking to them till almost 9. I don't need to tell you guys the rest of the story, but I left my RO system on the entire time. I went home, I came in the next morning, and I had drained a 300-gallon tank of all of the salt. I moved all of it from, I basically changed a saltwater tank to a freshwater tank overnight with freezing cold water. So when I got in, it was a 300-gallon freshwater tank that had my bamboo shark and about 15 other salt fish, a lot of tangs, some triggers. It was just a beautiful setup. It was kind of my show tank. So as soon as I had got in and saw the water, as soon as I walked in, there was water just from start to finish. Knew as soon as I saw it what I did. Never crossed my mind throughout the night. Knew exactly what I did. Went and shut everything off. Started to go to clean it. Couldn't figure out what the best course of action was to just instant fix it or bring it up slow. I decided it was so bad right now that I would just try to do something drastic. I just dropped in a couple of 300-watt heaters, which was the biggest I had at the time. I put in about 5 of them, if I remember, just to try to get it up to temperature because it was very cold. My shark was dead. All my tangs were actually not dead, which is shocking. They were all laying on the side. They were all very, very bad shape, but they weren't. They were still breathing. So I then opened a box of, I remember it was Instant Ocean at the time. It was just every bag did 50 gallons, so it was super easy to, and I knew it was a 300-gallon tank with the sump. So I just started opening bags of salt and just spreading them in. Again, in hindsight, not the best way to have done it. So I opened 3 bags quick, dumped them in, let it mix around for a little bit. Then I opened another 3 bags quick, let it mix around a little bit, and then I opened a 3rd bag with the sump and just dumped it all in, brought it back up. Within probably an hour and a half, brought it from 0 salt back up to where it was supposed to be. Again, probably not the best idea. Shockingly enough, everything in the salt tank, minus my shark that was dead when I got there, everything ended up coming back. And it was before the end of that day. By the time I had left that night at like 8 o'clock, everything in that tank was back swimming around. It was incredible that they survived it. So, and that's filling it overnight. So that's a good 12 hours that I was gone before I got back. And they took full out fresh water for at least a couple hours. So thankfully, because of the way it was going, my RO system wasn't pumping it out that fast. So it was enough to completely change it, but it would have been very slow, gradual going down. So it really wouldn't have affected them until probably halfway through the night. So that is my horror story of what my worst flood was. You guys got any real good ones? Post them in the comments below. We like to share the stuff with you guys just so you know. Stuff like this with keeping aquariums happens. Everybody makes mistakes. Some are more costly than others. That one cost me an animal that I'd wanted for years that I'd finally got. So obviously I was more pissed off at my bamboo shark dying than I was at everything else. The money it cost me, the time it cost me, the work it cost me, because I was shop vacuuming up with a little 30-gallon shop vac for a full day. But anyway, guys, any fun horror stories you got, post them in the comments. We love to read them. We'll see you in the next one.